When my son looked me straight in the eye and said, "Mom, you're obsolete. Get out before we erase your access," something inside me shattered. My name is Evelyn Marrow. I'm 67 years old. Just 1 week earlier, I buried my husband, Richard, a man I loved for 42 years. I thought grief was the worst pain I could endure. I was wrong. Adrian, my only son, stood in our memory estate, the kind of futuristic apartment that held not just furniture and walls, but every digital file, every investment, every scrap of family history. He waved his sleek wristband, and suddenly my entire life appeared on a glowing glass screen. Accounts, deeds, even family photos, all tagged under his name. "Dad's will left everything to me," he said coldly. "You're too old to manage it. Go live somewhere simpler." Beside him, his wife Leela smirked like she was delivering mercy. She adjusted her pearl-white jacket, eyes sharp behind her AR lenses. "Evelyn, there's a retirement complex on the outskirts," she said sweetly, as if she were suggesting a vacation. "Plenty of people your age, no responsibilities, no power." Her words cut deeper than any knife. I wasn't a mother anymore. I was an inconvenience. I clutched the little suitcase I had packed in desperation. Inside were only clothes and a small box of letters Richard once wrote me. Love notes from a man I thought I knew better than anyone. As Adrian's AI-driven car drove me away, the neon lights of Boston smeared across the rainy windows. The memory estate shrank in the rear view like it had never belonged to me at all. I pressed my hand against the glass and whispered, "Richard, you promised I'd never be alone in this house." And yet here I was, alone, betrayed, discarded. That night, I checked into a budget capsule motel on the edge of the city. The kind of place where the walls buzzed with broken circuitry and the bed felt thinner than paper. My son had just inherited $41 million and suggested I rot here. But as I lay awake, listening to the hum of neon outside, something stirred inside me. Richard had always been meticulous, careful with documents, deliberate with every decision. He had shown me a will once, years ago, and it had not said what Adrian claimed. My son believed he had won, that I was too old, too weak, too naive to question him. He had no idea. This story is how a discarded mother became the one holding every card. The next morning, I woke up in that humming motel pod with the bitter taste of betrayal still on my tongue. For a moment, I thought maybe it had all been a nightmare. But the empty room, the flickering blue light above my bed, and the crumpled $20 bill in my pocket reminded me, no, it was real. My son had taken everything. But then, a thought pressed into my mind like a whisper from Richard himself. "Check the will, Evelyn. Don't take their word for it." Richard had always been obsessive with details. He double-checked every line of every contract, every password, every document. He used to tease me for falling asleep while he recited numbers and legal jargon. But one night years ago, he'd leaned across our dining table, touched my hand, and said, "If anything happens to me, you'll be safe, Evelyn. I've made sure of it." That memory pushed me onto the bus to Howard Kane's law office downtown. Howard was Richard's lawyer for decades, a man with sharp eyes and old-world manners. When I walked into his office, clutching my coat like a shield, his expression shifted from surprise to alarm. "Evelyn, I've been calling you for days. Your son said you were traveling." "Traveling?" That's what Adrian told him while he was busy moving into my home. My voice shook. "Howard, I need to see Richard's will. The real one." Howard's face darkened as he pulled out a thick leather folder. He flipped to a page, slid it across his desk, and said quietly, "Your husband was clear, very clear." And there it was. Richard's neat digital signature glowed on the glass paper. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. "To my beloved wife, Evelyn Marrow, I leave our residence at 11 Skyview Tower, all furnishings, and 70% of our total assets, totaling approximately $28 million. My breath caught. 70%. Howard's voice grew heavier as he read further. To my son, Adrian Marrow, I leave 15% of assets held in trust, contingent upon his respectful treatment of his mother after my death. Contingent, respectful treatment. I covered my mouth. Richard knew. He had seen the arrogance, the entitlement, the cruelty creeping into Adrian's heart, and he had written the will to protect me. Howard looked me in the eye. Evelyn, if Adrian mistreated you, if he forced you out, lied about your inheritance, he's not just being cruel. He's broken the condition, which means— My voice cracked. Which means every dollar he thought was his is mine. Howard nodded slowly. All 41 million, Evelyn, the house, the accounts, everything, your husband made sure of it. I sat there trembling, not from weakness, but from the sudden shift of power. My son, who tossed me aside like trash, had just destroyed his own inheritance. For the first time since Richard's funeral, I felt something rise in my chest. Not grief, not fear. Strength. Adrian had played a dangerous game, and he was about to learn he wasn't the only one who could play. Howard didn't waste a second. The moment I signed the affidavit confirming what Adrian had done, he was on the phone with the courts, the banks, and the Federal Registry. His voice, calm, measured, but with steel underneath, was the opposite of how I felt inside. My hands trembled as I clutched a cup of tea his secretary had offered me, but my lawyer, he was already moving mountains. Evelyn, Howard said, sliding his glasses down his nose, your son has committed fraud, elder abuse, forgery, misrepresentation. We're freezing every account under his control. As of this moment, he can't touch a single cent. I blinked. You mean he's locked out? Howard's lips curled into something I hadn't seen in weeks, a smile. Completely. For hours, I sat in that office as the storm began. One by one, Howard's calls landed blows. The memory estate management system reversed Adrian's name change. Utility transfers halted. Investment accounts frozen. Credit cards declined. By the time the sun set over Boston, Adrian wasn't the heir of a $41 million empire. He was a man standing on quicksand. That evening, as neon bled across the skyline, my phone buzzed. Adrian's name lit up the screen. My chest tightened. I pressed answer, and his voice, once so arrogant, now cracked with panic. Mom, there's some kind of mistake. The banks froze everything. My cards aren't working. What the hell is going on? I closed my eyes, steadying my breath. Then I spoke with a calmness I didn't know I possessed. I'm sitting in Howard Kane's office, Adrian, your father's lawyer, the one who read the real will, the will you never showed me. There was silence. Long, cold silence. Then his voice, sharp and desperate. Mom, listen to me. You don't understand how complicated this is. Dad wanted me to take care of things. You've never managed large assets. You're being manipulated. I almost laughed. Even caught, even exposed, he still thought he could gaslight me. No, Adrian, I understand perfectly. Your father left you a choice, respect me or lose everything. You chose greed. He hissed into the phone, a sound half rage, half fear. You can't do this to me. My voice dropped lower, steadier. I'm not the one doing it, you are. I hung up before he could reply. My hand trembled, but not with weakness, with power. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the background figure, the obedient wife or mother. I was the one holding the cards. Howard leaned back in his chair, studying me. Evelyn, you just won the opening battle. But Adrian, he won't go quietly. Are you ready for a war? I stared at the city lights outside, reflections dancing in the glass. For 42 years, I had been quiet, supportive, dismissed. Now I was ready, because this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice. I thought freezing Adrian's accounts would be the end of it. A clean victory, justice served. But snakes don't slither away that easily. 3 nights later, as I was sipping weak motel coffee and trying to fall asleep, Howard called. His voice was tight, strained. Evelyn, there's something you need to see. Come to my office tonight. When I arrived, the blinds were drawn, the city lights flickering through the cracks like nervous signals. Howard slid a tablet across his desk. On the screen was a copy of Richard's will, but not the one I'd seen before. This one gave everything to Adrian. The signature looked identical, the notary seals perfect. My stomach dropped. How? Howard's jaw tightened. Forgery, high level, likely done with insider tools. Adrian and Leela must have orchestrated it. They're trying to flood the courts with competing versions of the will. If they succeed, this could drag out for years. I gripped the edge of the desk until my knuckles turned white. Can they win? Howard's eyes, usually calm, flickered with unease. If the judge believes these documents, yes. And Evelyn, there's more. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a folder of Richard's business records. The papers smelled faintly of dust and ink, strange in a city where almost everything was digital. I started digging deeper into Richard's financial history, payments to shell companies, consulting fees that don't add up, transfers to accounts overseas. Evelyn, he hesitated, like a man about to break someone's heart. It looks like Richard was laundering money. The words hit me like a physical blow. My chest constricted, the room spun. Richard, the man who held my hand through every hardship, who swore he built our life on honesty and hard work, dirty. I shook my head violently. No, Richard wasn't like that. He hated lies. He used to scold Adrian for cutting corners in college. Howard's voice softened. I don't want to believe it either, but the documents are here. If this is true, the inheritance, everything, could be seized as criminal proceeds. I staggered back into the leather chair, my body trembling. First, Adrian betrayed me. Now the possibility that my husband, my Richard, wasn't the man I thought he was. Hot tears blurred my vision. Had my entire life been a lie? 42 years of loyalty, sacrifice, love, was it all built on crime? Howard placed a hand on mine, steady but heavy. Evelyn, listen to me. Adrian and Leela may already know about this. They could use it as leverage, maybe even trade it for immunity. The room went cold. My son wasn't just trying to steal from me. He was ready to drag his own father's name through the mud to save himself. For a long moment, I sat frozen, staring at the folder of numbers and shadows. Then slowly, something inside me shifted. If Richard was guilty, I deserved to know the truth. And if he wasn't, then this was just another scheme Adrian thought he could win. Either way, I couldn't run from it. Not anymore. I lifted my chin, wiped my tears, and whispered, more to myself than to Howard. Then we fight with everything, even if it means digging into the darkest corners of my husband's past. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just a family battle anymore. It was a war with stakes far bigger than inheritance. It was a war for truth. The folder of Richard's secrets weighed on me like a stone, but Howard wasn't the only one watching. A week later, 2 federal agents showed up at his office. Suits sharp, voices flat, eyes that missed nothing. One of them, Agent Naomi Reyes, leaned forward across the polished table. Mrs. Marrow, we've been investigating your late husband's business ties for years. What your son is trying to exploit, we already know. I froze. So it's true. Richard, Naomi shook her head. Not the way Adrian thinks. Richard was working with us. He posed as a launderer, but he was feeding intel to the Bureau. Your inheritance is clean, but your son and his wife, they are playing with fire. I pressed a hand to my chest. Relief and rage mingled like acid and honey. Then stop them. They've forged documents, lied to the courts, stolen my home. Naomi's eyes hardened. We will, but we need you to help us trap them. They trust you, Evelyn. That makes you the only one who can bait the hook. The room went still. My heart thudded. You want me to wear a wire? Naomi's lips curved into the faintest smile. Smart woman. That night, I stood in my motel bathroom, staring at my reflection as the agent carefully taped a small device beneath my blouse. My hands shook, but not from fear, from adrenaline. For 67 years, I had been the supporting character in other people's lives. Tonight, I was the lead. At exactly 8:00 p.m., Adrian and Leela walked into my borrowed living room dressed like they were attending a gala. Leela's heels clicked against the floor. Adrian's briefcase gleamed under the neon light. He kissed my cheek with false warmth. "Mom, you look better. Ready to put this mess behind us?" I didn't answer. I just sat at the table, my palms flat against the wood, the wire beneath my blouse recording every syllable. Adrian opened the briefcase. Inside were contracts, neatly stacked, glowing with digital signatures. "Here's the deal. You keep the condo, $5 million in clean assets and immunity from Dad's activities. In return, you sign over control of the rest. No more fights, no more courts. We all walk away happy." Leela leaned in, her smile sharp as glass. "It's generous, Evelyn. Think of it as family unity." My heart pounded, but my voice came out calm, almost cold. "And what do you two get?" Adrian chuckled. "Freedom, reputation, money, everything Dad built untouched." I tilted my head. "Interesting, because Agent Naomi Reyes finds it very relevant that you're using my husband's name as a bargaining chip." For the first time all evening, Adrian's smile faltered. Leela's hand froze mid-page. "Agent what?" Adrian whispered. And then, as if on cue, the door swung open. Agent Reyes and 2 federal officers stepped inside, guns low but steady. "Adrian Marrow, Leela Marrow, you're under arrest for conspiracy, elder abuse, fraud, and attempted extortion of a federal witness." The color drained from Adrian's face. He turned to me, eyes wide with betrayal. "Mom, how could you?" I looked at him, my son, the boy I once rocked to sleep, the man who threw me out like garbage, and I felt no pity, only justice. "The same way you forged papers to steal my life, Adrian, except my way is legal." Leela hissed, her voice desperate. "This isn't over, you'll regret." Naomi cut her off, snapping handcuffs onto her wrists. "Save it for court." As they led my son and his wife out, I sat perfectly still. For years, I had been underestimated, forgotten. Not anymore. The wire still hummed against my skin, recording the last moments of Adrian's freedom. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the woman left behind. I was the woman who set the trap. The first night back in my own home felt unreal. For months, I'd been sleeping in a budget motel with buzzing neon and paper-thin walls. Now I was in the master suite of the memory estate, the place Richard and I had built together. But it wasn't the same. His suit still hung in the closet. His handwriting was still on the notes in his study. Yet for the first time in 42 years, I didn't see myself as the caretaker of his world. I saw myself as the owner of my own. The next morning, I stood in the kitchen sunlight, coffee steaming in my hand. Agent Reyes had called at dawn. "It's official, Evelyn. The accounts are restored, your ownership confirmed. Adrian and Leela are awaiting trial. You are free." Free. A word that had never tasted so sharp, so sweet. But freedom wasn't enough. I thought about all the seniors I'd seen at that motel, men and women who had been pushed aside, stripped of dignity by the very families they raised. How many of them had no Howard Kane, no FBI, no second chance? That night, I opened my holo screen and transferred $15 million into a new account. The Marrow Foundation for Elder Justice. It would pay for lawyers, shelters, and advocacy, so no other mother or father would ever have to beg for a roof over their head while their children drove luxury cars on stolen money. The media caught wind of my case quickly. "The widow who fought back" became a headline. My phone rang endlessly with requests for interviews, documentaries, book deals. For years, I had been invisible. Now my story was a beacon. But in the quiet hours when the cameras were gone, I faced the hardest truth of all. Adrian was still my son, and yet blood alone didn't make him family. Family are the ones who protect you when you're vulnerable, who choose loyalty when it costs them something. My son had chosen greed, cruelty, betrayal, and that choice meant he lost the right to call me Mom. One evening, as I painted in the studio I'd reclaimed from Richard's study, Howard asked gently, "Do you ever regret how it ended?" I looked at the canvas, my own self-portrait, a woman standing tall in light, no longer in the shadows. I smiled faintly. "No, because this isn't the end, it's the beginning." Through the open windows, the city lights shimmered like stars. For the first time in my life, they weren't someone else's dream I was keeping alive. They were mine. And if Adrian ever wondered how his mother could take everything back and still stand taller than him, the answer was simple. I didn't just fight for money. I fought for my dignity. I fought for justice. And in the end, I won both.